Hello everybody and welcome to a new episode of
Jesse's Tips and Tricks!
Hello everyone, welcome to a new episode of
Jesse's Tips and Tricks!
Today we'll be talking about cuts and transitions. If you're familiar with the series, you probably figured out that this is not a video about automutilation by women in the menopause. No, it's about one of the most fundamental things you do as a video editor. Cutting up your video footage and deciding when and how to go from one shot to another. By cutting and editing your footage, you're making jumps in space and time. The way you go from one shot to the next adds meaning. It's perhaps the most important tool you have as an editor to tell your story visually. It can greatly contribute to what's going on in the video and what's being said. Or, if applied incorrectly, it can turn your video into one incomprehensible mess. Let's go through a few ways of cutting and their meaning. J&L cuts are named after how they look. That is, if you have the audio of both clips on the same track. More often than not, I think it's best to put the audio of two clips on separate tracks because it gives you a bit more freedom in deciding how to go from one clip to the other. But whoever it was that came up with the name J&L cut apparently did not. If you use a single video and a single audio track, these cuts more or less look like a J and an L, provided that the video track is above the audio track in your timeline. I'm pretty sure we don't have to bring up the multiverse theory to think of a situation where the audio track is above the video track, just like left-handed pianos and infinite bubble wrap are actual things. But by default, the video track is above the audio track. And even in a universe where that would be reversed, they would just call a J cut, an L cut and the other way around. Unless that universe also has a completely different alphabet. Anyway, what do these cuts do? Well, the J cut means that the audio of the next clip starts before the switch is made in the video. The viewer already gets involved in the next scene, while he or she still sees the previous one. This effect, when applied correctly, can create some nice tension and a real sense of anticipation for the video layer to go to the next scene. You guessed it, the L cut works the other way around. Where the cut in the video layer is made first, the cut in audio comes a bit later. While the viewer is already taken to the next scene visually, the audio keeps them in the previous scene for a brief moment. Depending on the edit, this can create a feel of hastiness, since the speaker from the first scene still has to finish their sentence while the next scene is already starting. Or it can give extra weight to the last words from scene 1, since they apparently are so important that they have the strength to resonate all the way into the next scene. I really like to play around with these kind of cuts since they can add a lot to your video in terms of depth and dynamics, and they can create seamless transitions between scenes or shots. They are also frequently used in high-end film and TV productions, sometimes to an excessive extent. A little side note though, not all customers will always understand it when you use a J&L cut, so be prepared for some occasional feedback. You can either process that feedback and make the cuts a bit more straightforward, or you can try to explain that this was an artistic choice and that it was done on purpose. Try to estimate what's the most appropriate. With the cross dissolve, one shot dissolves into the next, instead of having a hard cut. It can be done between two completely different shots, or to make a jump in time within the same shot. Obviously, the length of the transition has a huge impact on that transition. One thing you can achieve with the cross dissolve is that it creates a dreamy vibe to your montage. Unlike with hard cuts, shots now slowly go from one to another, making your video a bit detached from the harsh reality of the here and now. This effect can be utilized to emulate a dream, a fantasy, or a memory. Another effect you can achieve with a cross dissolve is that you can suggest the passing of time. If you take different moments from a scene, put cross dissolves between them and add the right music, you can create the illusion that a lot of time has passed. Check this out. What you never want to do is use cross dissolves for cuts in an interview. For cuts in an interview, use B-roll, switch to another camera if that's possible, reframe the shot, whatever, be creative, but only use a cross dissolve if you want to achieve an effect like the ones I just discussed. A zoom blur clearly indicates a motion. You can use a zoom blur zooming in when going from a shot of the outside of a building to a footage of the inside, or for going from a wide to a medium to a close shot, or maybe to insinuate that you're looking into somebody's mind. When using a zoom blur to zoom out, the motion is obviously the other way around. Going out of somebody's mind, going from a close to a medium or a wide shot, going from the inside of a building to the outside. Of course, you can think of more situations where you might want to apply the zoom blur effect, but always keep this notion of movement in mind. So don't use this effect between two shots in the exact same situation with the same framing. Don't. Just like with the zoom blur, a push implies movement. Not an inward-outward movement, but a move to the side or up and down. When you go from one shot to the next using a push, you are implying that you're taking the viewer to another location. A move sidewards can be used to go from one place to another. A push up or down can suggest you're moving between different floors in a building. Always keep this implied movement in mind, and don't use a push transition if you're not taking the viewer somewhere else. Note that I've just discussed a push transition where the first shot is pushed away by the incoming second shot. If you push in the second shot over the first shot without pushing it away, the second shot more or less overrules the first one. There's no interaction between the two shots in terms of transition. The second shot is just pushed over the first one. Nevertheless, it still wouldn't make much sense to stay within the same situation. The difference in the two ways of pushing in the new shot is in their mutual hierarchy. But the fact remains that a push transition always suggests a move to a new location. Another transition you might be familiar with is the wipe. You might know these types of transitions from Star Wars. You can change the direction, the speed, the feather, and things like that. It usually indicates a significant change in space and time. On an ever-moving planet, technically any cut is a jump in space and time, but you get the point, right? Depending on the speed, direction, and feather of the wipe, the transition can come across as rushed or smooth. But in general, wipe transitions are pretty noticeable. One specific, and if you ask me, pretty corny type of wipe that deserves mentioning is the so-called clock wipe, which clearly mimics the movement of a clock, hence the reference to the passing of time. Unless you have a really good reason to do so, better not use the clock wipe. Don't. There are tons of ways to go from one shot to another. The possibilities are practically endless. Whether it's a technology like glitchy effect, a chaotic earthquake, a heavenly glow, a fancy flare, an awkward pinwheel, or whether you use an object or a human being. My point is that choosing a transition should always be done in a well-considered fashion. Every transition has a meaning and tells a story visually. Always be aware of that. You can tell the viewer that something is a dream or a memory, or that there's a jump in space and time, or that this video is finished.